Hey guys and welcome back. In this video we will discuss about the quotes that we can use in bash scripting. Now in very simple or general term, when we enclose our contents in quotes, we are indicating to bash that the content within the quotes should be considered as a single item. So let's see some examples and then try to understand what quotes can do for us. So let's start with the strings, how we can use quotes with strings. So I have written one script here. You can see the first line is the shebang, then using quote with string, that is the comment, then string in single quote. So I'm using echo command to display a message and I'm using single quote with the message. Similarly, then I have string in double quote, which means I'm using echo command with a string that is written in double quotes. And let's just add one more line here. Let's say string with no quote, and here I'll not use any quotes. Alright, let's save it. Escape :w. Alright, the file is saved. Now let's run it. So now you can see that when we are talking about strings, it doesn't matter whether we use a single quote or we use a double quote or we don't use any quotes. So while using strings with echo command, it does not matter whether you use single quote or double quote or no quote, but this rule is only when you are working with strings with echo command. When you are working with strings with a variable, then you will have to use a single quote or a double quote. And you can see the output here that all the three outputs are working fine, and each of the echo commands are written in different ways. The first one is with a single quote, the second one is with a double quote, the third one is without any quote, and all the three of them are working perfectly fine. Now let's talk about the quote with the variables. And I have written one script here. You can see now we are working with variables. So this is a variable name, and it is containing some string here that I have saved inside the variable. Now I'm using echo command with double quote. You can see echo space within double quote $name. This $sign is used to get the value which is inside the variable. Then I have used echo with single quote, and then finally I have used echo with no quote. Let's run this script and see what we are going to get. Let me first save it. Escape :w, and now let's run it. And you can see that when we are using double quote with the variable name, then it's working perfectly fine. But when we are using single quote with the variable, then it is not considered as a variable. Instead, the literal value which is written within inside this single quote has been printed here. And in the third way, that is with no quote, it's working perfectly fine, and it has been recognized as a variable, and the value of the variable has been printed here. So it should be noted here that the shell variable expansion will only work with double quotes, and if you define any variable in a single quote, it will not be considered as a variable. And since we are having single quotes here, it is not considered as a variable, and the value of the variable is not provided. Instead, the literal value which was inside the single quote was printed here. Now let's see one more example. So this is the script that I have written. Let me clear the terminal first. Alright, so as I have showed you before, when we are working with variable, we do not need to enclose it within double quote. We can just directly write the variable like this, and the value which is stored in the variable will be replaced or returned because of this $sign. So that's why this line is perfectly fine. Now coming to the first line, it says example of using quote. Then I have echo when no quote is used with string. So here in the string, you can see I have not used any quote, whether it's double or single. I have not used any quote here. Then in the second echo, you can see when single quote is used with the string. Here I have used single quote with the variable definition. So string is the variable, then this is the value of the variable, and I have enclosed it within single quote. Then in the third method, I have enclosed the string within double quotes. You can see when double quote is used with string, and I have used this double quote for the string variable. Then we have this one, when variable is used with double quote. Here remark is another variable, and I'm using double quote for remark variable, and I am printing some value along with the value of the string variable. To get the value of the string variable, I have used this $sign. Then when variable is used with single quote, here the variable is being used with a single quote, as you can see. And then finally, when variable is used with no quote. Let's save this script first. And now let's run it. Now let's see the errors that we are getting. So when no quote is used with the string, we are getting error at the line 4, which means first, second, third, fourth, which is this one. We are getting this error because for the variable string, we are assigning a value which is concatenated by white space. So because of this white space, bash considers these to be different values. Welcome to be a different value, to be a different value, and then tanzTalks.tech to be a different value. So these three are considered different values. So because of that, we have to use double quotes here to enclose this value and make it as a single value for the string or the variable. So that is why in the second method where we are using the single quote, the value was considered as a single value, or the data which we entered for the string variable was considered as a single value, and it was saved in the variable and it was printed perfectly fine. Same goes for the double quote, which means when we are working with string, if the string is containing only one word, then we can do away with the use of any quote. But if the string is containing more than one words, then we are supposed to use either a single quote or a double quote. Otherwise we will get error like this, because the bash is going to consider the second word in your data as to be a command. So here in this line, the bash has allocated welcome to the variable string, and then bash is considering this to as a command. That is why it is giving an error that to is not a command which can be found. So when we are working with the strings, always use single quote or a double quote if the words are more than one. Now let's talk about the variables. When variable is used with a double quote, it's working fine. When variable is used with a single quote, it's not working. Instead, the literal value is getting printed. We wanted to print the value of the variable string, but instead the literal term or the literal word has been printed here. So which means when we are working with variable, we should not be using single quote, we should use double quotes. And when we are working with no quote, we are going to get this error because it's very obvious. As I have explained earlier, remark is a variable and it is taking the value which has been assigned here. So bash is going to assign this hello word to this remark variable, and then it's going to consider this user as a command, and then it's going to search whether it's a command or not, and hence we will get this kind of error. And finally, this hello user string was printed because we are using echo command here, and this echo is actually printing the value of the remark which was written here. Because this definition of remark did not work out, it met with an error. So this definition of remark is still present here with this echo command, and hence this was printed here. You can see this and this are exactly same. So I hope you were able to understand how we work with strings. So in very simple word, to sum up everything that we have learned in this video, when we are working with strings, then you can use double quote or a single quote. It will work perfectly fine. Then when we are working with variable, you can use double quotes, but never use a single quote, because the variable which are written within single quotes are not considered as a variable. Instead, the literal word that is written there is printed. So I hope the topic of quotes is clear for you. If it is not, you can watch the video once again. And still, if you are having problem understanding the quotes in bash, then you can write it down in the comment about your doubts or the problems that you're having, and I'll be happy to explain it further for you. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we will talk about the bash variables. Thanks for watching.